Hi, Sarah here. Sorry, the light seems to have gone a bit weird in here. Suddenly a big black cloud came over. Anyway, how are you all? Whew, lot going on. As always, understatement of the year. We've got Three-Eye Atlas hurtling its way towards us again. I think its closest pass of the Earth is on the 31st of October, which is kind of synchronistic, if you like, being, the end of October is a really liminal space anyway. And I was listening to a podcast with Barbara Handclough, who was talking about, she believes that Three-Eye Atlas is activating the planet and us into a higher state of being, if you like. Yeah, check it out. It's super interesting. And I think Helen Ensworth and Pam Gregory say similar things, but, relating to their own fields. And we have Samhain on the 31st of October as well, which is a very liminal space this time of year where the veil is super thin and we are able to pass through more easily. Our ancestors are very close by at this time of year. We have the full moon on the 5th of November, which is the beaver moon, I believe, which again signifies the start of winter. I think it used to be called the frost moon, and it's the time, it was called the beaver moon because it's the time that the Native Americans are putting out their beaver traps for the winter, and the beavers themselves are building their lodges. And it's interesting to take into consideration the names of the moons. The last full moon, which was on the 7th of October, I believe, which is the harvest moon. So everything in nature is beginning to tell us this is the time, it's the end of the harvest. This is the last harvest now. It's a place where our ancestors are very near. The Mexican people celebrate the Day of the Dead, which means that they're honoring their ancestors. We have Halloween, which has kind of been turned into some kind of circus and really has little relevance to its original meaning. But again, it was a remembrance of the dead and a nod to the fact that the veil is very thin now and that, all kinds of strange stuff can happen. Samhain is very much about death. It's a celebration of the end of harvest, as I say, the end of that time, right at the very end of the summer, end of autumn. We're now stepping into winter. So it's very much about death, but it's also about the prospect of rebirth as well. So it's about transformation and how we can transform in this liminal space. It's a celebration, a pagan celebration that's been held for a very long time and a very important one. It's reminding us that this is the darkest half of the year. So up until the winter solstice, the days become shorter and shorter, and then the rebirth comes with the days getting lighter. But certainly until sort of mid-February, end of February, the days are still very dark. It's to remind us to give thanks for everything that we've gleaned over the summer, to give thanks for our garden vegetables, our flowers that have bloomed, the trees that have given us shade, the medicine plants. And it's on the medicine wheel, Samhain is located in the west direction, which is as we go around from spring, east, summer, south, west is the autumn. and the beginning of winter. So we're very much in the west direction, which is represented by the element of water. So we have the rains that come, the rains that replenish the dry earth. In Wales, it rains quite a lot anyway, but we did have a very dry summer, so the rains here now are very, very welcome. And the nights are very long. And in medieval times, and I think probably before medieval times, but it was certainly documented in medieval times, that people would go to bed early, obviously with the light. They'd go to bed early when it got dark, and then they'd sleep until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they would get up and they would do chores around the house, whether it's keeping the fire going to keep the house warm, whether they're preparing food or bread for the following day, or they sit around just chattering about what they might do the following day. And then they would go back to bed an hour or so later and resume their sleep until the first light came, when they'd get up and continue with their day. And I think this is very much ingrained in our DNA. And, we find that a lot of people in these days are what they believe to be insomniacs, but actually they're just remembering what their ancestors called to sleep. So, in our DNA, that we are remembering that we need to wake up in the middle of the night to do some chores and then go back to bed, because otherwise, you can't sleep for 10 hours straight. It's not in us. Well, maybe some people, the younger you are, the more you sleep. But it's something that humans have done for a very long time, is with the season. So they go to bed when it's dark and then, get up when it's light. And in the summer, conversely, they're up and about much longer, because the days are much longer and the nights are much shorter. So I used to, when I was younger, I used to hate the winters. I used to hate that. It was a fear almost. Fear of the cold, fear of the darkness, fear of there not being any sunlight. And I always yearned to live somewhere where the sun always shone, and the winters were not bitterly cold. And as luck would have it, I ended up in the southern Mediterranean, and on an island called Gozo, where it is sunny and warm most of the year. The winters there are probably about 6 weeks long, and they can be pretty cold because the house is not built for it. And the summers can be excruciatingly hot. And in between, you have this kind of slight transition from winter, where suddenly overnight, when we've had some rain after a long summer, suddenly you go out onto the hills and they're green again. I mean, it's just nature just takes advantage of this moisture that has been dropped on them, and all the wildflowers come out, and it's absolutely beautiful. November is a beautiful time. Visually on the islands, it's like the whole island has been grassed over. It's stunning. And again, in the spring, the same thing happens. That you've got more spring flowers coming, and the farmers are preparing the ground for planting before the heat kicks in and the drought. But while I was there, although I absolutely loved that climate, I did find myself yearning for these longer seasons, these longer periods of recognition of what the planet is doing, really. And so I've come to love winter. I love the fact that the element of fire keeps my house warm, and I love the fact that I have to tend that, and I have to honor the fire for keeping my house warm. I love the fact that the rains come and replenish the garden, and that everything dies back for me to be able to just tidy up and clean up and prepare again for the following year. I love that time where I can sit with a book in the evening, and or plan what I might want to do. I like it because I have time to do some crocheting or some very basic knitting, or just generally sewing or making some medicine tools. This is a spirit stick I made. Beautiful bit of driftwood that I can see a face in. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love that. And this one I brought back from Gozo. So the ceramic bit on it was made by a ceramicist called George Cicluna, I think. Anyway, it was on my door in Gozo, protecting me from whatever. So to be able to make things like that in the winter, to have the time where I'm not, constantly in the garden, keeping the slugs at bay, or picking vegetables, or just generally keeping the weeds down. So, winter for me now is about creativity and planning and all those lovely things when you feel you don't have to be rushing about. So, what else about Samhain? So how would you celebrate Samhain if you do? I mean, it's a pagan ritual that has been around for a very long time to celebrate this time of year. And what I like to do is from the mugwort plants that I haven't picked for their leaves and things already, or their seeds, I like to leave some of the tall stems so I can make a wreath. And I will make a wreath from the mugwort, and then use whatever I can find in the garden that seems suitable to decorate it. And I'll put that on my medicine wheel, which is out in the garden, which is made from huge lumps of quartz that came from this area, which is interesting. And I would also, because fire is very much associated with Samhain, is that I would write down all those things that I'd like to release. So, it can be anything. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental, it can be spiritual. All those things that I feel need releasing now, I can write on a piece of paper and ceremoniously put into the fire for the fire of creativity to release all of those. Leave me a comment telling me how you mark Samhain and what you do, and whether it's an important time for you, or if there's a different celebration throughout the year, like Beltane, for example, or any of them. Imbolc, which is the beginning, or it's the middle of the winter, but it's when things start to shoot forth. Let me know how you celebrate it.